Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Grand Tactician, the Civil War. This is our Let's Play series playing Grand Tactician, which is a new game which actually just released out of early access today by Oliver Keppelmuller, the developer of this game. And this is a grand strategy Civil War game that is also mixed with a tactical combat Civil War game. So kind of similar to the way the Total War games work, where armies march around on a strategic map, and when they meet, they fight a battle. However, it is much grander, I think, in terms of the scope of the strategic element of the game. It almost feels a little bit paradoxy or old school paradoxy in certain elements of the game, although the tactical combat isn't as well ironed out or as sometimes challenging as Total War games could be. So it's kind of an interesting mix. Now, this is our Let's Play series where we're playing as the Union, and in our last episode, we managed to win a battle near Richmond with the Department of Pennsylvania under Major General Robert Patterson. We were heavily outnumbered, but the Confederate AI kind of did some confusing things, split its forces, broke one wing of our army, then kind of strung itself out in a column. We kind of came in behind and routed a few brigades, but it still felt like we were losing. But somehow, I guess because the armies are all green and all militia at this point, because it's still only 1861, we were able to rout enough of them and keep a few of our brigades solid that the rest of the army was defeated. So this enemy army, the South Carolina State Militia of about 24,000 soldiers, lost about 2,000 casualties. I think we lost around 1,500. And we were able to hold Richmond against this counterattack that the AI was mustering. So Richmond is in the process of falling to the Union. It is 75% gone at this stage. However, our own troops are in a rough supply situation. We advanced these guys down the valley, and we kind of captured a bunch of different locales. We captured New Market. We captured lumber mills to the south of there. And at one point we captured Staunton, sort of at I guess the head of the valley, or the exit point of the valley. We then moved into Charlottesville, which we also took, but apparently since have reverted back to the Confederates. I'm not quite sure how the zone of control rules work, but now that those cities have reverted back to the Confederates, this army in the Department of Pennsylvania in Richmond is cut off. However, Richmond is about to fall, and maybe we can ship some supplies up the James River or something, or move some troops to West Point to get some access to supplies that way. The alternative is that the Confederate armies in Northern Virginia are not terribly strong. There's the Army of the Potomac, which is about 3,000 men. And I think there's like another army or two in this area. I think the Army of the Shenandoah, about 10,000. So they have about 30,000 troops there in Northern Virginia. We've got about 34,000, or they have 13,000. We have about 34,000 troops under Major General Irvin McDowell. Our troops are not in great situation from a supply and logistics perspective. Their readiness is currently sort of yellow, I guess, if you will. Good supplies, but just not, perfectly ready to march. Their readiness is mediocre. And so we've taken sort of the northern bank of the Rappahannock River, north of Fredericksburg, but we haven't been able to push south yet, mainly just waiting for our logistical tail to follow. Now, once Richmond falls, perhaps we will just advance to try and clear this rail line to get these troops in supply down near Richmond. I'm not sure, but that's the situation in the east. What I expect we'll probably be dealing with in today's episode, however, is a battle in Tennessee. So the AI has acted aggressively here for kind of the first time that I've seen so far in this early campaign. It's only July of 1861, but the AI did move aggressively into Kentucky. Sorry, not Tennessee, into Kentucky. The Confederate Army of the Tennessee has moved into Kentucky to try and take that state for the Confederacy with about 8,200 soldiers in the Army of the Tennessee. We've countered with our own Army of the Ohio with about 7,000 soldiers under Major General Don Carlos Buell. We shifted 2 brigades from Major General George McClellan's Army of the Ohio, which had these troops previously, but is now sort of withdrawn after pushing back a Confederate threat in eastern Ohio. He's waiting back there for some supply depots and things like that to construct so we can continue our advance. He also only has 3,200 troops, so we probably should wait for new troops to be raised. But in the meantime, 2 of his brigades went over to the Army of the Ohio via rail. They've joined Don Carlos Buell, and we're about to see a showdown here in Kentucky with the Army of the Tennessee, probably near Lexington, Kentucky, would be my assumption at this point. Missouri, meanwhile, is almost entirely in the hands of the Union. We've taken almost all the cities with a very small force under Major General William Harney, led by Nathaniel Lyon's brigade. We are pulling these guys back as they're really low on supply, but they have pushed pretty much the Confederates completely out of Missouri, and we're just pulling back to get a little bit closer to the rail line and logistical hubs back there. We're also in the process of building a river gunboat squadron, although that flotilla is not yet ready for sea. The ships look like they're about 35% completed on the stocks at Cairo, Illinois. But I think in their current position, they at least block the Mississippi River north for any Confederate adventurers. Other things going on right now, well, our strategy, if we take a look at the strategy screen, national morale 96 versus 90 of the Confederates, because we keep winning battles. National support, however, the Confederates have slightly higher. Morale of the armies is considerably better on the Union side, 74 to 56. 27 loyal states versus 14 in rebellion. 68,000 Union soldiers in arms. 69,000 Confederates so far, so the Confederates actually have more men at arms so far. But my superior generalship has negated much of that. Naval tonnage, 73,000 to 9,000, not super surprising there. Military experience, 16 to 14. That's because we've won 8 battles. You gain military experience when you win battles, so you can kind of turn conscripts into veterans. And so far, that's been going our way. 8 to 1, we've only lost 1 battle. 5,400 Union casualties versus 11,000 Confederate casualties already. European relations are only at 20% for the Confederates, so not super great there, not likely to result in a European intervention, which is possible in this game, by the way. And trade warfare, we're doing better on that, I guess. Weapons industry, we're doing markedly better on that as well. Major General Winfield Scott is still the commanding general of the Union armies. Okay, so meanwhile, on our objectives on the left side here, win a major battle, win in CSA territory. We've accomplished both of those. We have not captured Richmond, but we're in the process of doing that. And we are working on breaking Confederate morale, but we haven't done that yet. We need to maintain support above 60. We still have that right now, I think. But that doesn't count till 1862. Captured 10 forts. So I guess one objective is the Anaconda plan. Winfield Scott's Great Snake. We have not captured 10 coastal forts yet, although I do have some plans to do that. And we haven't captured Western Virginia, I guess, yet. Grafton and Charleston. So those all hurt Confederate morale and may make them more likely to collapse. If we take a look at our finances, they're a mess. We have 28 million in revenues, I believe, per month right now. We're running expenses of over 105 million, a negative 76 million. Is our current treasury situation is not very good. Our credit rating is BBB, which is also not very good. I should be auto managing finances, shouldn't I? Let's do that, because I don't want to manage finances. So we'll do auto manage of finances. I thought that was checked before, but I guess it wasn't. Meanwhile, policies, we're currently have the Tariff Act and the print notes activated. We're researching the breadbasket, which will improve relations with Europe. We are also researching industrialization. Both of those are about 50 days away. And we have previously researched and activated military level 1, Militia Act 1 for 3-month militia, 12-month militia. We really need to get to Militia Act 2 for 24-month soldiers so we can have soldiers in arms for 2 years. But I'm more concerned with industrialization and breadbasket. Breadbasket helps our relations with Europe because it ensures we continue exporting large quantities of food to Europe during a period where Europe really had some serious crop failures, and it was a major influencing factor on keeping the Europeans out of the war. And then also industrialization, which helps our economy. I'm not auto-managing policies. We'll keep those under our control. Production and goods and trade. There's a lot here. Again, it looks very paradoxy, but you can't really do a lot with much of this. Most of it's kind of auto-managed, but it's cool to see it all running on its own. And as you take different buildings and things like that, they can obviously influence the economy. You know, if the Confederates lose access to a ferry, or if they lose access to a bridge with you know, the supplies that go over it, or more directly, like if they lose access, I'm trying to find like a mill here, or what else? There's iron mill, there's plantations here, there's iron foundries or steel mills, telegraph wires. There's all sorts of economic buildings all throughout here, and you can see obviously based on the color, whether they're blue or red, that indicates who currently controls them. Ports, ferries. You can see coal mines down here, and you can raid them too with cavalry too, so you can definitely wage commercial warfare. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and hover over here in Tennessee, because I think that's where our most likely clash is going to occur. You can see the Army of the Ohio moving down. When they get to that inner circle, these two armies will meet and fight. And then you can see, who's Kenley? I don't know who he is. Richmond falls. We've taken Richmond. So you saw we were at 75% success on capturing that. The militia were defeated and they're retreating. And so the Army of the Pennsylvania has taken, or Army of Eastern Pennsylvania has taken Richmond. And so the Confederate capital is ours. So actually we're marching east to engage the Army of the Tennessee. But if we go back to this strategy screen here, you can see Richmond has fallen, and that is a pretty big hit to the national morale of the Confederates here as well, which obviously the goal is to break the Confederates' will to fight. So capturing their cities and things like that will influence that. So Richmond has fallen. We're building a supply depot there. You can see the Tredegar Iron Works are in Union control. The Confederate South Carolina militia apparently are retreating east toward Fort Monroe. That's a bad day for that garrison down there if they do get down there. And West Point is now a Union port now. So presumably we can transport supplies up here, because while there are Confederate forts and guns at Norfolk and the forts near there that would prevent us from moving up, I think the James down here. Is this the York on the northern side? There's nothing that would prevent us from moving in that way. So might allow us to get our troops back into supply. Although it still looks like they're not in supply. So not sure about that. Meanwhile, the army in northeastern Virginia here still hanging out. I'm curious if Richmond falling will trigger the Confederates to do anything wild or crazy. Kenley, where are you? Are you the Expeditionary Army? You are. So I want you to move down to... Where do I want to send him? I'm curious if we can take Norfolk from the south. But landing just 2,000 soldiers behind enemy lines seems like a pretty dicey proposition. What if we just send him to Port Royal? This is a very nice... no, I want to move you by sea. No, I don't want you to move down that route. I want you to move by sea. Let's cancel that. Oh, shit. Is he still going to move? He should move to that port, really. Well, in any event, he's not going to move that. I'll stop him before he gets there. Let's also move the army of northeastern Virginia down here to the southern side of the Rappahannock to go ahead and try and take Fredericksburg. I know their readiness isn't perfect yet, but I want to try and open supplies up to the troops at Richmond. I don't want to lose like 12,000 troops that are cut off behind lines there. Meanwhile, I think the battle for this turn, as I said, is about to take place in Tennessee. The Army of the Ohio has started moving east. One thing that is kind of cool is as you go into the night phases, you can see here right now it's 2000 hours. You can see they form camps and the soldiers stop marching at night. Okay, so we're going to fight Felix Zolkoffer, commander of the Army of Tennessee, 8,200 soldiers with Major General Don Carlos Buell's Army of the Ohio. And we're going to go ahead and do a play battle. You can auto resolve if you want. You can also deploy to defend. But we're going to go ahead and fight. The Battle of Lexington, Kentucky on July 11th of 1861. After initial skirmishing and maneuvers, the opposing armies are deploying for battle. 8,500 Confederates under Major General Zolkoffer are facing 7,100 Union troops under Major General Don Carlos Buell. You can see here's the deployment screen. We'll get rid of the... We can go ahead and take a look at the armies. Both armies' morale is currently set as determined. We can click on them to get more information here. Looks like our foraging and provisions are the only things not at 100%. We only have one division. We have 3 brigades of infantry and 1 battery of artillery. Everybody's fully supplied. They're all 3-month troops with 3 months remaining on their enlistments. Minimal numbers of sick, so this is kind of the roles, if you will, of the units. So you can see the aggregate at last return. It's all very cool stuff. Like, I think the attention to detail and the amount of information in here is really impressive. I do think at times the AI is not super compelling, but I do think that the game itself is. These are some really, I think, period specific and well done items here. But let's see here. So we are on the defensive, it's saying. I think all the map objectives are in our control. That's what you can see. These objectives here are blue, which is kind of how the AI knows where to attack. Looks like the Confederates are going to come on the map to the east here near Quirk's Run. So I think the logical place to deploy to stop them, because the AI doesn't do a great job of like knowing where to attack sometimes. Sometimes I think it could use a better understanding of the map. You can see, by the way, this is the Perryville map. So the way the game works is when units fight, you get deployed on a battle or on a map that I think is the closest to like a historical map that they would have. So Perryville, you know, Kentucky obviously was a battle fought in Kentucky, not necessarily near Lexington, but the game doesn't have a map for Lexington at this time. So that's why we're fighting at Perryville. Means you fight a lot of battles at Bull Run. Although at least in Virginia, you know, you've got, that was a historical fight where a lot of battles were occurring. Units can break due to low morale or high casualties. The loss resilience is determined by the nation's military experience and experience of the unit train. Okay. I don't know if I've seen that icon before. That might be new. They're still definitely working on the game, and it's been enhanced a ton in the last year since it entered early access. And they plan to continue that. I also know that there are some development items where they're working on like enhancing the AI further. So I know that campaign AI balancing is something that's a major item they want to work on. Where are the different objectives? I wish they stood out a little bit better. Okay, so there's one here and one here. So basically following this roadway here, but they're all behind us. So I suppose defending in this wood line here to the east of Perryville, or maybe the ridges overlooking the woods, would be a logical place for the Confederates to come at us. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here to the 3D screen. This height doesn't look like much elevation though. Maybe this is the ridge line. Where I love the topographical maps, by the way. So like, let's go to that Harmon College, I guess, because I'm assuming the Rebs are going to come up this roadway, and then we're going to run into them near the Danville Pike because they're going to probably go for these objectives. They could also shift south, but if they're starting on the east side of the river, and if this is their entry point on the map, that would be the closest spot for them to go, and they'd still have to cross this river either way. So I think we'll do that. I love these maps. I love the maps. I love sort of the, you know, the blue blocks or the red blocks representing units. It looks, I mean, having units fighting in these kind of maps where you see the actual soldiers firing volleys is cool, but I think it actually looks better from here. Anyway, let's go ahead and move speed up ×10. Let's get those troops across the river. It's really easy to command this force because there's only one division. So there's only one division, which means I can just click on Buford and tell him to go somewhere and he will, and I don't have to, or not Buford, Buell, and I don't have to worry about like dilly-dallying around with different divisions or worrying about if Buell is close enough to a division to issue the orders, because all of that factors in when you're fighting with a much larger battle. But in this case, with just a single division and 7,000 troops, it's basically one layer. The division, it's one layer of command. So really, it's a division-sized battle. All right, so troops are lining up here on these ridges here. And I'm a little worried that maybe the rebels will have some cover, some advantage of cover, because if we zoom down on this 3D map, it does not look like we're going to have an elevation advantage. This map makes it look like there's an elevation advantage here, because you can see the edge of this, although maybe not. I guess we'll advance into the woods because there are some heights in these woods too. I'm not very good at reading a topographical map. So let's just advance into the woods. Let's just try and fix and engage the enemy. That's my objective. Fix, engage, and destroy. I know it says it's a defensive battle up here, so the enemy is going to attack us. But fuck that. Let's go find him. I'd say march to the sound of the guns, but there are no guns yet, so be great if we could meet him with us in the woodline. Oh, shit, there they are. Enemy brigades coming up on this roadway here in the woods. So let's just stand up and meet him. Let's deploy here. Do we want to move in a double quick? Double time, boys. Get into position. Might exhaust us and get us to break sooner, but they're not gonna be deployed, and we are if I move them in ahead of time. You can see the Rebs are deploying some skirmishers against us. They have considerably more brigades than we do. I wish the artillery wasn't off on the flank. That artillery feels like it would be better positioned in the roadway to fire up the road. I don't know if they can really see them. There's 3,000 troops under McCrae's brigade here. Gladden's brigade, 2,900. So they got 2 brigades of troops, but then they've also got 2 batteries of artillery. Let's also tell our infantry to... Can we tell them to engage at long range? We actually have 3 brigades. Okay, so we've got the second. They're all the second. We've got 2 second brigades, and we've got a 4th brigade. Infantry. All right, engage at long range. You never run out of ammo in this game because it seems like the enemy takes 1 or 2 volleys and then like half their brigade is gone. What's the difference between fire at will and bombardment? All right, so we've both formed up looking at each other. We're in the woods. We have high fatigue, so we're waiting here because one of our brigades, I guess just one of them has high fatigue from double quicking. Says these guys are firing, but I don't see any cannons firing. You can see them loading and swabbing out the barrels. Oh, they are firing. Okay. They're going to fire. The enemy's going to try and turn our flank, so I'm going to move the 4th Brigade up here to refuse our line. All right, so we're moving back to ×2 speed. So you can see we're firing, I'm assuming at this brigade. A few casualties, not many. They're moving through the woods against us, so if they open up with volley fire against us, this battery is going to get wrecked. But they're firing a third shot here against these troops, which now apparently disappeared because we must have lost line of sight on them or something. The infantry's moving up the roadway here toward our troops in the open. Looks like are these the skirmishers? No, 2,200 soldiers and 3,000 soldiers. So they're moving up against us. So you can see we've got 59 rounds of ammo. Artillery is still firing at these troops, even though apparently we can't see them. I love the mid-air explosions of those. All right, I think this brigade, the 2nd Brigade, will be able to fire into the flank of the Tennessee State Militia coming up here. You can see 74 casualties for the Tennessee State Militia. They're loading to fire their first volley on us, but I think we already broke them. They fired back, so they did get a volley in. We lost over 40 men in that volley, but they've lost 166 soldiers. We have troops firing on them from the flank, though, with the 2nd Brigade as they advanced up that roadway. So you can see we are savaging these boys pretty good. Meanwhile, this brigade up here in the north is taking some casualties to our artillery fire. They're closing in with our artillery. And the artillery held. Canister fire or something. Those enemy troops did not want to fight. We didn't lose any men in that unit, and that 3,000 man brigade was driven back with just 74 casualties. That seems silly, to say the least. Really? They're that afraid? I mean, I guess they could be militia troops. They could be poorly trained conscripts, I suppose. Like, that is definitely a thing. Meanwhile, the 2nd Brigade has lost 90 men. The other 2nd Brigade has lost 39 men. This rebel brigade here, the Tennessee State Militia, has lost over 500 men. So we've lost like 100 men between these 2 brigades. The enemy's lost 5 times that number, over a quarter of their strength, and are retreating. They've got one more brigade coming up the road here, Gladden's brigade, but I don't see them breaking our position. And with that flanking brigade, which was a smart move by the AI to try and flank me, but the fact that the artillery held them at bay, I mean, I know I was able to deploy the 4th Brigade, so even if they had driven the artillery back, we'd still be there, but I don't know. Yeah, you could have fought better. You can manage how difficult the AI also is with settings to make them fight better or give them different bonuses or things like that. I gave them some mild advantages in the game, but not heavy. You can see Gorman's brigade has mixed muskets. These troops down here are firing Springfield muskets, so they're very good weapons. They're taking a few more casualties from Gladden's brigade, which is now firing back at him. I've shifted the artillery fire south, which is going to enfilade Gladden's brigade, which I would think would do some pretty heavy morale damage to them as well. You can see the artillery, there's smoke there, so they're still firing. It looks like they fired about 4 to 6 rounds of artillery ammo, which might be one of the largest artillery engagements that we've had so far in terms of ammunition consumption. And the enemy's retreating. So now we can pursue, which you do, and they didn't even get their artillery into action down here, so their artillery is going to be fine. Now you can lose in the retreat phase, just fair warning. I turned a victory into a defeat during the retreat phase once, at least earlier in the game's development, not in this campaign. I don't know if that's changed, if any of the rules there have changed at all. We'll press on. There's 40 minutes here. And the Battle of Lexington, Kentucky looks like a minor Allied victory or Union victory. It is, I'm not even sure what time of day it is anymore because that time of day went away when the victory condition was met. And now it's just sort of the pursuit phase. Which would be great if I had some cavalry. You can move around the campaign map with WASD keys. You can use Q and E to rotate the camera if you want to, you know, make yourself look at the battle from a different angle. I don't like that capability on the campaign map, and you can lock the campaign map orientation, but it could be useful in a battlefield scenario. So these guys are going to fire a volley here against the enemy artillery. Inflicted a few casualties with that first volley. And the second volley doing about 14 casualties per. You can see the enemy infantry fleeing before us. I have no additional troops to fix them in position, though, so we're not going to be able to really do anything with that. This is the first battle for the 2nd Brigade of their mixed muskets. I really need to upgrade these guys' weapons. You got a whole bunch of stats here, though. Caliber of the round, accuracy, range, weight of the gun, 2.5 rounds per minute. Like, all that stuff's pretty cool. Meanwhile, as you can see, the battle was a victory here for the Union. Federal minor victory in Kentucky. 182 Union casualties. That's it. Over 850 Confederate casualties. Better than 4 to 1. They actually had 900 casualties out of their total force of about 9,000 men. Lost about half their guns, apparently, in the retreat. And that is a great victory for us. So I would imagine they're going to withdraw out of Kentucky now, and we'll be able to push them or chase them out of the state of Kentucky, securing that for the Union. You can see 182 men to 900. Enemy morale falls by about 0.5%. Our experience rises by a little bit less than 1%. Narrow victory at Lexington. The enemy is fleeing. You can see here the write-up from Major General Don Carlos Buell. The enemy has reportedly suffered, you can see, the Battle of Lexington has ended with the Army of Tennessee retreating in panic. My command has earned us a total victory, with the enemy army running for their lives. The enemy has reportedly suffered total casualties of 907 men, 162 killed, and the rest are believed to be wounded. The morale is believed to be stable. Our casualties are total 182 men, of which 21 are killed, 24 are missing, and the rest are wounded. My morale is eager, with supply situation mediocre. We have captured 489 rifles from the enemy and 8 guns from the battlefield. Great. And that battle was fought at about 8:30 in the morning, it looks like. So I'm assuming the Army of the Tennessee will retreat south now. I guess they could retreat east toward Paintville and go through, was this the Cumberland, not the Cumberland Gap, the Cumberland Gap's up here, but whatever this gap is here, where Zolkofer actually historically fought. They're retreating. Just keep saying unit routed. And you can see they're suffering casualties in rearguard actions. So rearguard actions are simulated where you can suffer additional losses here. So they're losing considerable losses, almost to 1,000 men. Not 1,000, but you can see they've lost to 78 men, 59 men as they're withdrawing. Where are they retreating? They're retreating northeast. Oh shit. We've got another battle here. My units have low morale in the Army of Northeastern Virginia, so I ordered McDowell to cross the river to deal with the troops at Fredericksburg. We outnumber them 2-1. I've never done the auto-resolve. I'm tempted. Let's see what happens. 72% chance of victory. I'm curious if the casualties are higher. A glorious victory at Fredericksburg. Okay, so the auto-resolve occurred. The enemy has reportedly suffered 258 men. 258 casualties, that's it? Hampton's division retreating panic. My command has earned us a remarkable victory. The enemy lost 258 men. The morale is believed to be panicked. We lost 331 men, so we actually lost more men than they did. But we won the battle. Ah! Alright, so you can see the Army of the Potomac down here, 3,700 men. The Army of the Shenandoah, 12,000 men. And then Hampton's division as well. Alright, so more rearguard action. We've crossed the river. We're in the process of taking Fredericksburg. That'll open up a supply line south to the troops at Richmond. Although it looks like their supply situation is improving, so I'm thinking they may be drawing supply from West Point. But in any event, that's the first time I've ever simulated a battle, and you can see where there we beat Hampton's division of about 11,000 troops. Okay, so I'm guessing there's a treaty between the Confederates and some of the native tribes in Oklahoma. And we are up to July 13th, so 2 days. These guys are retreating west. Gordonsville. Looks like it's blue. I don't know why it says it's Confederate if it's blue. But in any event. So they're going to retreat west of Richmond, I would assume. And then these state militia here are withdrawing east toward Fort Monroe. Let's hope they don't take that. But yeah, so an interesting situation here. Also, the Army of the Northwest, about 20,000 troops near Grafton in West Virginia. Hopefully they don't try and invade the north because we don't have troops to stop them if they do. The Army of the Tennessee is retreating northwards toward Ohio. I don't understand that. I guess we may have come in behind them and cut off their retreat, but you'd think they'd move east toward Paintville. And then our troops in Missouri have withdrawn a little bit further north to try and get their supply situation better. And it has gotten better, so that's good. Missouri is still in our control. Okay. Department of Pennsylvania provisions 17%. Western Department of the West is at 2%, but that's better now, I think. Oh, they don't have provisions. Well, we can order them to forage, I think. Plenty of ammo and forage for the non-existent cavalry. So we'll have to see. But now that we've won this victory here, we can hopefully move McDowell further south to link up and clear this rail line. And then maybe these Confederate troops will withdraw southwest toward Lynchburg. But that's the situation we find ourselves in. We've won yet another glorious victory. The enemy casualties are up to 12,000, 10 victories, 1 defeat. And this war is going well. That's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys did enjoy the return to Grand Tactician, the Civil War. It feels like it might be a little bit of a grind at this point to kind of grind down the remaining Confederate armies because they're not standing long enough for us to destroy in the field. But we'll see how things go. You can see our credit rating got worse, BB plus rather than triple B. And our debt situation got worse. So maybe our economy will collapse before the Confederates. In any event, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This game just came out today on Steam. If you're watching it before 10 a.m., I think it may not be out yet, but I think it comes out around 10 a.m. and I'm not sure. You check the Steam page. There's a time of day thing there. So if it's not out, it'll be out very shortly. It's coming out today. And if you're interested, check it out. It's a very small studio, just a couple of folks. And I think it might be the most ambitious Civil War game I've ever seen in terms of what they're trying to cover. Definitely room for improvement. Hopefully, if the sales go well, you'll see continued, improvement. I know they're intending to make the battlefields a little bit smoother and to look a little bit better. But really, I think the key thing that this game needs to work on at this moment, in my opinion, is the AI. And how many games do you say that about? A lot. But I do think the AI can go a long way in this game. And if they can make this AI competent, which I wouldn't say it is yet, but if they can make this AI competent, then I think this game could be tremendous. One weird thing is, like, I don't know why these are the starting armies of 1861. I don't know why these two armies haven't merged. They've both been defeated in detail. They both lost considerable casualties. Make a lot more sense to have these two armies merge into a 15,000 man army rather than kind of float around as two smaller forces. Likewise, Hampton's division, merge that. Make an army of 25,000 men, and that might have a better chance of standing against the Army of Northeastern Virginia, rather than continually having like these small one-off skirmishes with like detachments of armies. Just one example of like something that's not even in the battlefield, like just campaign stuff that the AI could be much better at. I also think like movement around the battles themselves, around the maps themselves, could be greatly improved, and making like battles not devolve into one volley and a unit runs. And maybe that's because the troops are green. I don't know. Maybe that's deliberate at this point. And as troops get more experience, that'll change. I'm curious if I play the 1862 or 63 or 64 campaigns. I played them a long time ago when the AI kind of was, and it's come a ways, when the AI wasn't as good. And so the AI now at least seems able to somewhat manage its affairs on the strategic map to some extent, whereas before it was non-existent. So, I'm curious if you take one of those mid-war scenarios where the armies are stood up and ready and organized and whatnot, like where you've got the Peninsula campaign going, or you've got the campaign for Gettysburg going, or whatever. If you join at that point, those different campaign starting points, maybe the AI does a lot better job than the campaign I started with. I started with the complete scratch, February 61 start date. The Confederacy hasn't even fully seceded yet by that point. So different start points, I would imagine, would show off different capabilities. In any event, that's going to do it for today. Hope you guys did enjoy the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you want to see more of this game. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.